All right, hello. Welcome to episode 502, Talk Buffalo podcast, part of the Blue Wire Network. Today is Tuesday, November 8th, election day. Get your ass out there and vote. I don't care who you're voting for. Get out there and vote. If you're listening on this on Tuesday morning, make sure you get out there, man. I'm not in a very good mood. I'm really not. This was a very bad week for Buffalo sports. We'll get to all that in just a couple of minutes. It is, on the other hand, always good to see and hear from my good friend, writer, podcaster, sports media personality, my buddy, Joe Yerdon. What's up, Joe? How you doing, man?
Listen, I know the Bills took care of Aaron Rodgers for me last week. Yeah. And the Lions took care of Aaron Rodgers for me this week. So it's a rarest of all situations where they not only beat him, but made him look like an idiot too. And
he played horrible that game. I watched a lot of highlights, a lot of film from that. And as much as, it's easy to blame everyone else on the Packers, the lack of supporting cast, the lack of receivers, man, I watched several plays on film where Aaron Rodgers just missed guys that were wide open. I'm just terrible. Good for the Lions, though. A good victory.
Very good for Lions because that might be the one where people are just kind of like, yeah, he's got to hang it up. It's time for him to
go. Could be. And
he looked horrible. His teammates didn't help him. The guys were dropping balls, committing penalties, all that stuff. And
he has. And you're right. But I've been telling you this all year for whatever reason. And again, I feel like we have to say this every week, but there's always new people who are tuning in for the first time, whether it's on the audio side, whether it's on the YouTube video side, which, by the way, if you are watching this on YouTube, like the videos, subscribe. We're trying to build up this channel. But anyway, Joe is a Bills watcher, not a Buffalo Bills fan. Joe is a Detroit Lions fan. And I think I'm higher on your team than you are. I really do. I think the Detroit Lions are a pretty good football team, man. I really do. Now, they're still losing. I mean, they only got 2 wins this year. But I legitimately think that they are a up-and-coming football team. I mean, they need pieces. Obviously, they're going to need a better quarterback. And, I think they'll get that in the future. But I like that team, man. And when Jameson Williams gets into the picture pretty soon, too, that offense is going to be even better.
Yeah, offense hasn't been the problem, though. It's been the defense. But, wow, weird. They fired the defensive backs coach because they haven't been able to defend passes all year long. They've been getting shredded by everybody. And then they shut down Aaron Rodgers for 9 points. Suddenly, they can't throw the ball. They're they're making stops. They're doing all this stuff. That's funny. It's a weird coincidence that happened.
It is. And look, I hate Aaron Rodgers almost as much as you do. So these last 2 weeks, there's been one bright spot with sports for me the last couple of weeks besides Notre Dame whooping Clemson on Saturday night. That was awesome. But the other bright spot has been Aaron Rodgers getting his ass whipped twice in a row. That's been really cool. Look, Buffalo side, not a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Bills or Sabres recently, but we're going to get into some of that. Before, I'd be remiss, though, if I didn't say this. So we both live in Buffalo, and it's November. And we're talking about what's today? Or today, this is dropping on the 8th. So was it November 4th, 5th, whatever this weekend was. First week in November, dude, it was gorgeous out this weekend, especially Saturday, man. It was awesome. And I went out on Saturday to Prohibition. That's the bar right next door to Highmark Stadium. It used to be Tailgaters, a couple other places. Anyway, I met a handful of friends there. My buddy Joe Miller from the Overreaction Sports Podcast on Buffalo Rumblings. He met up. He had some wings, had a couple pints of beer, and just sat outside on a patio. And I was like, this is really cool, man. Don't get me wrong. I always enjoy going out and having a couple of beers on a Saturday, no matter what. But to be able to sit outside, literally in t-shirt and shorts on a patio in November in Western New York, man, that's a nice treat. I feel like we're going to pay for that later.
Yes, but definitely will.
It was nice, man. What were you up to all weekend? Do anything fun?
Well, I was watching a lot of the Sabres. I don't know if we'll get into that. There's plenty of Bill stuff to talk about, but I was watching them. I didn't really get into any shenanigans this weekend. I've been kind of playing it cool on the shenanigan side of things, but I don't know. It's went over to buddy's house and watched the game there on Sunday, and We got pizza from John's Pizzeria. Because we always get pizza wings. We always get some kind of food. There's a bunch of us hanging out, and they never fail. Like that's a really good joint. I don't know if you've ever had John's before.
Where is
it? They got a few spots. The one I hit was up off of Forest, out in Amherst, Williamsville. But they do a stinger pizza, man. That is freaking great. It is really, really good.
That's cool.
Yeah. So it was nice. It was cool. I mean, I feel bad sitting around with my buddies who are all Bills fans, and I'm just kind of like, oh, it sucks for you guys. Yeah. Sorry to see that. But they give it back to me by being like, wow, hey, look at that. Packers got a touchdown. Yeah, thanks. I know. Great, cool. really, really neat. I didn't expect that to happen at all.
Before we get into sports, so like I said, Saturday was awesome. Went outside, patio bar, a couple pints with some friends, and then I went to another bar, West Seneca, with a good Notre Dame buddy of mine, actually my cousin, and we watched Notre Dame just bury Clemson, which, as a Notre Dame fan, that was really cool. So as good as Saturday was, I'm not even talking about the actual game on Sunday. Sunday sucked. So I have a full-time job during the week. I work remote from home full-time during the week. And I also work part-time at a restaurant. I work like 3 nights a week. And then I do this podcast, 2 shows, sometimes 3 a week. Probably combine all that stuff, maybe 65, 70 hours a week. And I do it all Monday through Friday. Like I'm the kind of guy, from the time I wake up Monday until the end of Friday night, I will work every waking hour if I need to, because I want to have my weekends off, which I typically do. Saturday's my day to have fun. Whatever everyone's up to, that's where I go out and I get my fun on. And then Sundays is my rest and relaxation day, my kind of mental rest, reset myself for the coming week, lay my ass on the couch, watch some football for 8 hours, put on Red Zone, Bills game, whatever. I agreed a month ago to cover somebody at the restaurant, and I ended up working a double shift on Sunday, and I missed chunks of the Bills game live as it was happening. And so I DVR'd it, of course, and went home and rewatched that. I mean, I knew what was happening, but I have to watch the whole game and all the little things that happened. I'll never do that shit again, man. How stressful that was, having to miss the game, having to be at work. And I just felt like my whole weekend was off. And now it's already back into Monday. We're taping this Monday late afternoon, and I just don't feel right, because I didn't get that one day that I count on to have my R&R.
Yeah.
That shit sucked.
Yeah, I assume that the time change, setting the clocks back,
didn't
help that out either. That man, I never used to give a crap about any of that stuff, but I forget it. I can't be bothered with it now. Like I know it was for the farmers, and they started doing that in the 40s, 30s, 40s, or whatever the hell it was. It's enough. We're done. Like we don't need to be doing this shit anymore.
It's what is it, 5:35, and it's almost pitch black out now, and it's like that for the next few months. And God, it's just so gloomy.
It's 10:05 and it's almost dusk. Like,
now,
and it's not even into winter yet. Like,
right. And to be fair, because this is like Florida also has Eastern time, so it's the same thing. Like in Florida, it would be dark at 5:32, but it would be 35 degrees warmer. Or this shit's not yet, because again, it was beautiful this weekend, but real soon it's going to get cold. And it's cold and it's gloomy at 5:30. God, as much as I love Buffalo and Western New York, this is the time where it's like, wouldn't mind being somewhere else for a few months, man.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, we're kind of getting a gift with the 70, 80 degree weather the first weekend of November, but you said it. We're going to pay for it later, because that means the lake doesn't get to freeze, which means it could happen at any time. Well, let's not even get into it.
That's why I specifically picked a bar on Saturday to hit that had an outdoor patio, because I was like, this might be the last really nice Saturday that we see until around maybe like St. Patrick's Day or some shit. Anyway,
if we're lucky, St. Patrick's
Day. We're lucky. Well, I'll tell you what. Last St. Patrick's Day, because I remember this, I did a pub crawl. It was beautiful last St. Patrick's Day. It was probably nicer on St. Patrick's Day than it was this past Saturday.
It's funny you say that, because that's now a story day in Sabres history.
St. Patrick's Day?
Yes, because that's the day Ralph Kruger got fired.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Holy shit, I forgot about that. You're right. I completely forgot about that. Goddamn. Yeah.
Yep.
Good point. All right. Well, no one's getting fired from the Buffalo Bills. That said, I'm going to put this out there, because I'm telling you right now, man, I said this shit on on Sunday morning. Where the hell's my tweet, man? If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm screwing up already. All right. You know what? I'll tell you what, before we even get into the game, and I'll bring back up that tweet in a second.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the big news, which is bigger than the game. The Bills lost to the New York Jets, an ugly game, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. The much bigger picture, the scary news for the Buffalo Bills right now is, as we are taping this, which is approximately 5 p.m. on Monday. In fact, we were going to tape a couple hours earlier, and Joe very wisely said, you should probably wait for Sean McDermott to speak because, reports are starting to come out about Josh Allen and see what he had to say about that. So Ian Rappaport, there's been speculation and buzz that ever since the game that Josh Allen injured his elbow late in the game. And there's been a couple of videos of the play, and it looked pretty bad. And, again, we've heard a little bit of buzz, not a lot of reports, but you know how that goes, Joe. You're in the media, man. A lot of whispers, things going on with Josh Allen and his elbow. So Ian Rappaport tweeted Monday around 2:30 p.m. or so. He said, Bills quarterback Josh Allen is likely to be limited this week because of an elbow injury suffered late in Sunday's loss. But as of now, it's considered a situation to monitor rather than an ailment that would keep him out of the game, sources say. He's still undergoing tests to be sure. That last line is the important line, because then shortly before we're taping this now, Sean McDermott spoke with the media like he does every Monday. This wasn't specific to Josh Allen. And Sean McDermott said, we're going through it in terms of evaluating Josh Allen's elbow injury. They're still evaluating him. They're still doing testing. And McDermott said that they'll know more in the next 24 hours or so. Again, you're listening to this. Hopefully you're listening to this sometime relatively early on Tuesday. Some news might come out Tuesday. For sure it will by Wednesday, an update. Everything I've heard, and I'm pretty sure you have as well, indicates that, a lot of times, like Sean McDermott will give a very vanilla, very bland description of something. He'll say evaluating or day by day or this and that. Everything that I understand to this point is that as of right now, at least, again, late in the Monday afternoon, the Bills legitimately do not know the extent of the testing and how it's going with Josh Allen. This is quite obviously, again, something to not just monitor, something to be worried about, because I don't think you need to be a pro football analyst to know.
No.
As Josh goes, so goes the Buffalo Bills. And to be fair, that's not a Buffalo Bills thing. You can say the same exact shit about Pat Mahomes in Kansas City and Lamar Jackson in Baltimore and Jalen Hurts in Philly, all the teams. Your franchise quarterback goes down, you're down. And it's I don't even want to speculate. And I don't think you're going to either.
Nope.
This is scary though. This is a Buffalo Bills fan. I don't want to say it's the worst case scenario, but it's certainly your biggest nightmare, because we don't know. Again, he might be fine. He might even play on Sunday. He might miss some time. It could be worse. We don't know right now. This is scary territory if you're a Bills fan.
Yeah, this is the sum of all fears. It's just I don't think anybody anticipated it being a throwing thing that could take him out. I don't think that was ever an anticipation, considering the way he plays and how the line protects for him and all that stuff. I don't think anybody ever thought that an arm issue would become the problem for a guy that can huck the ball 70 yards downfield. But obviously this is, I'm not going to speculate, but when a play like that happens, you have a few thoughts that go through your head right away, because it very obviously, I mean, he threw that ball really deep to Davis. Davis probably should have caught it. I mean, he put it right. I couldn't place that any better. Really, I mean, I know people are going to complain about, should have been interference, blah, 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 whatever. That call's never going to get made at that point. 4th down, late in the game.
4th and 21.
Right. And it would have put them, at field goal range to immediately send it to overtime. Like that. Sorry, that call, unless he drags him to the ground, that call's not getting made. But he puts that ball in a spot where it can be caught. All you can ask for is that. But it was the play before that where it was the play before that or play after where he takes that hit. No, because
it was before that. It was before that. It was, I believe it was first or was second down. It was a couple plays before that. It was because it was 4th and 21 where he it to Gabe down the field.
So like that play happens, and I'm watching the action on his arm, what happens when he's holding the ball, how, it gets ripped out, the whole thing. And I just see the way he gestures to it. And it was very clear he was kind of gesturing to his elbow. I mean, that's pretty easy to pick out.
Sure.
But the first thought that ran through my head was Tommy John surgery. And I'm just like, I hope that's not the case. But that was the first thought that pops into my head. And listen, I'm not a doom and gloomer either. I've watched enough baseball to see pitchers react when, the things kind of go on them and they're just kind of like, it really hurts. This stinks. And then, the report after the game is they're going to get their, elbow evaluated by, Dr. James Andrews in Alabama. And it's like, well, forget him. You won't see him for 2 years. Obviously, this is not the situation right now for the Bills. So, and I hope it doesn't get to that point. But that's for me, that's the biggest fear I would have, is that he hurt it bad enough where that's the thing you got to do to be able to make sure he can A, keep playing, B, be able to throw the ball, anywhere near as effective as before. If it just ends up being something light in the context of things, like, if he has
like a sprain, a
lesser strain, whatever, something like that. If it's something like that, then all right, you can work through that, get by it, because that puts the timeline, depending on how severe, how whatever, puts the timeline so that he's back before the end of the regular season's done. Like that's good. Problem is, what happens in that time in between? Like that becomes a giant problem, because a lot of teams are playing really well now in the AFC, and 2 of them are in their division, and that's a big problem.
Yeah. Look, the one thing that everybody knows, again, is the Bills are only going to go as far as Josh Allen takes them. I'll say this: good news, bad news. From a speculatory point of view right now, if you're looking for good news, I would say this: 2 things. Number one, Sean McDermott, and I think might have been Joe Buscaglia who pointed this out on Monday. Sean McDermott saying a player's being evaluated is something he says a lot. So that doesn't mean necessarily bad news. Okay, so you can look at it from that point. You can also say, well, he got hurt, and 1 or 2 plays later, he's launching the ball 70 goddamn yards in the air.
Right.
Okay, that's good news. Bad news, if you're looking at bad news, it could be, well, he did that on adrenaline. You know what I mean? Trying to make a play. It's 4th and 21. He might have been worse on that throw. We don't know.
Possible.
Again, and we don't want to speculate too much before any test results come in. But that could be bad. And it looked pretty bad. And he also, I think it was 2018, he has a history with a UCL in his elbow. I think it was a 2018 where he got injured, his rookie season. I would say this right now without knowing any results. And again, by the time people are listening, depending on when they're listening to this on Tuesday or maybe even Wednesday, we might already know. I would be stunned if they're not very cautious with Josh Allen. Look, you want to have the best record. You want to win your division first and foremost, and you want to have the best record in the conference. But if you play Josh Allen and he's not healthy and it gets worse, you're done. You're done.
Yeah.
And you look at the next 3 games. That Minnesota Vikings game is going to be tough on Sunday. I know the Bills right now, or at least before the injury, they were like 7.5 up to 9-point favorites against Minnesota. I'm telling you, the NFC is becoming a little more clear right now. And the Philadelphia Eagles are clearly for real, although they haven't played a lot of good teams, but they're really good. And I'm going to tell you, man, the Vikings got a good roster. Kirk Cousins is not the greatest quarterback, and that's probably if you're still pessimistic about Minnesota, you would certainly point to Kirk Cousins. But I'm going to tell you right now, Dalvin Cook's one of the best running backs in the NFL. Justin Jefferson might be the best receiver in the NFL. Adam Thielen is certainly amongst the best number 2s in the NFL. They just traded for your boy from Detroit, who's a very good tight end, TJ Hawkinson. They got a lot of weapons. And by the way, Madison is a really good backup running back. And we all know, if you watch the Buffalo Bills the last couple of weeks, they have not played very well against the run. And Minnesota can run the ball, they can throw the ball, and they got a pretty good defense. So my point is this: the Vikings are for real. They're a good team. They're going to be a test with or without a healthy Josh Allen. No question about it. But you look, and if you got to sit Josh for 2-3 games, after that, you have Cleveland at home and you have your Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving. And then you have a 10-day break before you would play the New England Patriots, which would be at the beginning of December. It would not surprise me at all, given the way the Bills have been with handling their injuries, like Matt Milano just this past week and Jordan Poyer, and they're still being very cautious, bringing Trey White back into the mix. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see the Bills say, look, even if they lose one or even two of those next three, we need Josh for this stretch run, and maybe we sit him for 2 to 3 games, and make sure that elbow's at least close to 100%. If the tests don't come back terrible, but it's like, he has a sprain, give him a couple weeks. It's not going to, it sucks.
Right.
It certainly sucks, and the offense will be severely challenged without Josh Allen in it. But I think you have no choice. I know the temptation's there to want to make sure you have the best record in the conference, but not at the expense possibly of losing your quarterback and being done. So do you kind of agree with that? It's like you got to be cautious with this guy right now, this time of year.
Yeah, no, you 100% have to, because it's not just this year, it's next year, because their Super Bowl window is now.
Sure.
And what, the next 2-3 years, maybe, depending on how, depending on how things shake out. But like,
sure,
forever long, Allen has his contract until that's your window.
Yeah, as long as he's playing at a level that is an MVP type caliber level, which it has been for the most part anyway. But
right.
Yeah.
But like, you cannot jeopardize any of that stuff. I mean, yes, their chance this season to win the Super Bowl is very, very good. But if you want to, if you're going to say, well, no, he can gut it out. We can get him out there against Minnesota. He'll be fine. That would be weird. That'd be a weird move to make, to put a guy who's, feeling banged up, whose whole arsenal comes from, 90% of his offense comes from being able to throw the ball downfield, because that allows him to be able to run the ball, or, give the Bills the chance to run the ball, because you got to make sure you're not getting beat deep. But you do not take any chances. I mean, yes, division's very tight right now, and the AFC's gotten tighter because, listen, any given Sunday, the whole
the Jets are not a bad team. They're not, and Miami's good.
They, listen, it's always easy to underestimate the Jets because of, history.
Yeah.
But I mean, you looked at the way that they played the past few weeks, and listen, I know Green Bay's down, they're down bad, but they marched into Lambeau and beat them by double figures.
Yeah.
Like, that's not easy to do. It's just that the Packers played different at home, and the Jets went in there and kicked them in the teeth. Okay. And then their defense was pretty good on Sunday. Like, that's a bit of an issue. Their defense plays pretty well, and their offense doesn't lose the game for them, which is it's kind of like Baltimore Ravens, back in the day style. Like, just don't have your offense not lose the game. Let your defense be able to force the issue.
I'll tell you right now, I'm not trying to play Jimmy the Greek. That's a reference, by the way, for older football fans. But I'm going to tell you, man, I woke up Sunday morning and I didn't feel good about this game. And I tweeted this. It was 9:15 a.m. Now I'm going to read this tweet. I said, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have an uneasy feeling about today's Bills game. Good, even great teams. They have 1 or 2 games per year that are stinkers, a.k.a. last year's Jacksonville. I can't shake worrying today's that game. Hoping to see MVP caliber Josh Allen today to ensure it doesn't happen. We did not see MVP caliber Josh Allen today. But my point was, I kind of had this feeling going into this game. I'm like, the Jets, the week before, they completely shit the bed against the Patriots. They just played. Zach Wilson was awful. The Patriots manhandled them. It was embarrassing. Jets are back home. Big statement game. Jordan Poyer out. Matt Milano out. Trey White still not in the lineup. You just figure this is a game you're going to go down to New Jersey. I refuse to say New York, and get the W. It reminded me a lot of Jacksonville's game. And I still remember that well last year, because I remember doing a show, not my show, another show with Nate Gary. And these guys never even discussed the possibility that Jacksonville was going to beat Buffalo. And I kind of felt the same way. I think the Jets were, I know they were 2-score underdogs. I don't know exactly, but 2-score underdogs at home. I never felt good about this game at all, Joe. And I don't know. It's just self-inflicted wounds for the Bills.
Yeah,
have been their Achilles heel all year. And this time it got to them. Again, they've been flirting with this shit all season. 4 turnovers against the Rams. Didn't matter, though, because they still won by 3 touchdowns. Josh Allen last week against the Packers, 2 of the ugliest interceptions I've seen before Sunday.
Their second half was bad.
In the second half. Yes. So, stuff like that and bad penalties. And then you go against the Jets. And again, Josh Allen threw 2 really bad interceptions again on Sunday. Just a lot of self-inflicted wounds in this time. It really got to them. I don't want Monday's news about Josh Allen and worry to take away from the fact that this team played really lousy on Sunday. Don't let that distract you from the facts on Sunday. And I love Josh Allen, man. Everybody loves Josh Allen. At least Bills fans love Josh Allen. I still think he's one of the very best football players in the entire NFL. That said, dude, 8 interceptions he's thrown this season now, and 4 of them in the last 6 quarters, and all 4, and you've seen them all, the 2 against the Packers and the 2 against the Jets. None of these were bad luck, tip at the line or off a receiver's hand or the corner of safety just making an unbelievably good play. That happens sometimes. These were all 4 ugly, thrown right to the guy, shaking your head like, what in the hell are you doing, Josh Allen type of mistakes. This was easily, you agree, this was easily the worst you've seen him all season by far?
Yeah, it absolutely was. The Packers game, that one's so weird because they were up by so much of the half in that game that it was everybody took their foot off the gas. Like, whatever, these guys ain't getting into it, and they made it look close to the end. But that game was never close. But so it's like whatever, sling the ball around, get a little crazy, but still didn't look good. But like you can kind of write that off. Miami game was weird. Like that was a weird game, but whatever that the weather, all the stuff. Like, it's a shitty day, but this game was way different because you nailed it on the interceptions. They were rookie year Allen interceptions where these guys. I mean, the one that he threw, that he had 2 guys out there, and they were both it was Diggs and Davis maybe. They were like one behind the other, like right out there, and he threw it short of both of them. And Sauce Gardner's right there to be like, okay, thanks, great, easy pick. He's throwing it into a crowded spot, and it's like he's not even trying to thread it. It's just
he's a great rookie corner, but you're making him look. That was the easiest interception he might get for many years.
Right. It's just reach up and grab it. That's all it was. So it's a lot of decision making, and it can be easy to overblow a lot of this stuff because whatever. Every time they lose a game or a game gets close, it's the end is nigh when it comes to these things, and it's justified this time because Allen gets banged up and you don't know what's going to happen.
Sure.
Still doesn't tell you why he played like crap though. Like the injury had nothing to do with that. Like that has zero to do with that. So it's a little concerning because I think about it, the Miami game and the Jets game, both games on the road, both losses, hostile atmospheres. One of the things with Allen the first few years was like, how does he handle a loud house that's rooting against him? Like, how does he handle that? And I don't know. I'm not saying that's why those things happen, but it's weird that seems these are the situations that it seems to happen.
The last 6 quarters to me have reminded me very much of not even so much rookie year Josh Allen. I would say maybe 2019 Josh Allen, where he would show flashes and make unbelievable plays you'd see on SportsCenter every week, but then he would also have a couple boneheaded plays that really cost him. I don't know. Look, I still think he is one of, if not the best quarterback in the NFL. That hasn't changed. It's still him and Mahomes. I see flashes of Mahomes doing some really bad things as well. But again, you got to call a guy out when it's warranted. I don't care how good he is. If you're going to talk about a team, or you're going to be objective about a team, at least you got to be able to criticize and just. Josh Allen was not good.
Being a hater. It's not being a hater.
No.
That's what I mean. Like,
and I say this when I'm watching the game, and this is the difference between you and I, because I'm a Bills fan and you're not.
Right.
When I'm watching the game, there's no objectivity with me. If you and I were watching the game over a couple beers, I'd be screaming and high-fiving everybody when Josh Allen does something good, and I'd be screaming and swearing at the TV when he does something bad. When I come on this podcast or I go on someone else's show, or if I write on social media, I attempt to be unbiased in my observations of a football player. 18 of 34 for 205 yards, 2 interceptions. His passer rating was 46.8, which I read it was his lowest of the season by over 20 points. And it was his lowest rating of the regular season since they played Atlanta near the end of last year. I'm not going to make excuses for Josh Allen because the Green Bay game, they were comfortably ahead and he still made 2 really bad plays. So you can't say, well, he was trying to do too much because the offense couldn't get things going. They scored 24 points against Green Bay in the first half, and he still had 2 horrible interceptions in the second half. So I'm not going to make that excuse for him as a whole, but I will say this offense right now and this team right now is too dependent on the quarterback playing like an MVP, because other than Stephon Diggs right now, I don't see anybody who is playing with any sort of consistency. Stephon Diggs has been amazing.
The man.
He has been the man. Gabe Davis has not been the man. Gabe Davis, and look, you're talking to a founding member of the Gabe Davis fan club. I've been tweeting about this guy, calling him the next Mike Evans for well over a year. Before the Chiefs playoff game where he went bonkers, I've said this guy is a star player. And we've seen it in flashes this year. That Pittsburgh game, 3 catches, 170 yards or whatever the hell he had, just completely dominant. But, and then maybe the ankle had something to do with it early in the year, but I can't use it as an excuse anymore. He's dropping passes. He ain't getting open. He just doesn't look like a consistent number 2 receiver. Dawson Knox, for whatever reason, they're not throwing to him as much as they did last year, where he put up really good career numbers. Isaiah McKenzie's nothing to me. He's a splash guy. He'll make a play now and then. I ain't relying on him for shit. I don't know why Shakir's not getting more snaps. And then Joe, the running game. You know, Devin Singletary, I'm over him. I really am. Look, he gets some yards, and his yards per carry looks pretty good. But let's not forget something. You're so afraid of Josh Allen's legs and you're so afraid of his arm that you're playing light boxes against the Bills. You're not bringing up a lot of guys to stop the run. You'll let the Bills run on you. This dude ain't hitting no home run. He ain't breaking no long ones for home runs. He ain't breaking no tackles either. He gets hit, and that's it. That's a wrap. I never see him run through a tackle. He's a slippery dude, but I don't see him breaking tackles. I don't see him dragging the pile. When Josh Allen's not playing well, my point is this, my long-winded point. Nobody on the offense other than Stephon is there to pick him up. You're going to have to be able at some point to run the football. And they're not doing it with any consistency. And Sean McDermott's starting to get frustrated. You could hear that on Sunday about being one-dimensional. We heard that last year when Dable was the coordinator. Run the ball better.
I mean, you hit it on Allen. Like, they're far too reliant on him to do things. It was like, what, a few weeks ago, he was like responsible for like, what, 85% of the offense, whether it was running or passing. Like, it's a lot. I mean, the quarterback's
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Right.
He scored both touchdowns Sunday on the ground with his legs. That's my point, man.
Right. So, I mean, like, it's, listen, quarterbacks are going to own the ball anyways. That's their job. Like, that's what it's supposed to be. It's not like I want them being responsible for 30% of the offense and it's, fullback dives and toss sweeps and all that kind of crap all the time. Like, no, that's not the league. But what I noticed after the second interception against the Jets was that instead of running, I mean, they'd run, maybe what once each possession, maybe, just to kind of be like, keeping you honest. But there was no, he didn't really look downfield. The throw to Davis on 4th and 21 was the one time that he really opened it up and was like, screw it, we got to take a shot. But there were no other real deep shots after that interception. It was a lot of dump offs to the back coming out of the backfield, a lot of underneath stuff to Diggs, or occasionally throwing it towards Knox. I don't know how many he came away with catches, but it was a very soft underneath offense, trying to like loosen things up a little bit, trying to keep people honest. But it was just not that big play threat wasn't there because whatever the reason, I don't know if you just don't want to keep throwing balls up towards Gardner and their secondary, because the Jets secondary is pretty good. You don't want to keep throwing it up there and causing problems, but you also, again, my point with the Bills is always this: you have the best offense in the NFL, play like it. And that at some point the switch went off and they stopped playing like it.
Starting to wonder, are they really the best offense in the NFL? Because again, well, maybe they are when Josh Allen is playing like an MVP, but if he's anything else less than playing like an MVP, I'm starting to think that's not really the case, because again, Gabe Davis inconsistent. Isaiah McKenzie's giving me nothing. Dawson Knox, he's fine, but they're just not using him a lot, quite frankly. And they got a rookie who's not getting touches, and the running game strikes zero fear in opponents. So
there's
I don't know. What do you think is wrong? What do you think is up with? Do you think there's something specifically wrong with Josh Allen over this last quarter and a half? Because again, these turnovers were not, they weren't unlucky breaks. They were bad throws and bad decisions. Two of these four were straight up, one against Green Bay, and I think the first one against the Jets on the first drive of the game, where he looked like he was trying to throw the ball away, but then he like literally threw it. I can't remember who it was. Number 3, he was looking towards Dawson Knox. I think Steve Tasker said on the post game that he didn't even, he doesn't think Josh Allen even saw him because the guy was behind a big defensive lineman, so he never even saw him, and he thought Dawson Knox was open. But the one to Sauce Gardner, no question about it, that was just a terrible throw. Anyway, do you think there's something just specifically wrong with Josh, or is just a question, Joe? I mean, you cover hockey, but you know, in hockey and just all sports, sometimes even great players just go through slumps. Is this just your boy's just slumping right now? Or do you think there's something more to it?
I think it's a slump, honestly, because I mean, we've seen this from other great teams in the past where they play, they'll play some game. Like I remember there's a Kansas City game I remember a few years ago where they were playing against New England. Maybe it was like 2-3 years ago, and New England was horrible, or maybe it was Tennessee. I forget. Either way, they were playing a team that was god awful. There was no reason that they should lose, and they lose. And you're like, well, what the hell's going on with this team? Are they broken? Like, what's happened? That was the last game they lost until the playoffs. I don't even know if I don't know if they just went on I can't remember which year it was. I'm not making this up, I swear to God. But they didn't lose again after that one because all the switch went off in everybody's head and be like, can't be losing these idiots. Come on. Right. Like, let's realize who we are. For me, the Bills game yesterday, it could have been rescued if ifs and buts, whatever, it's fine. But like, Davis makes that catch late. That's a game changer. The holding call on Diggs, or the Diggs catch that went for almost 26, 30 yards, whatever it was. You get a holding call there. Like that's,
bad call too.
Yeah. So, bad calls happen, shit happens.
Sure.
But it was like a dagger kind of thing where it's like, well, nothing's going our way. Oh, shucks. Like, sometimes you just get in that kind of a funk, but but again, it comes down to like just every loss feeling like the end of the world, because that's the mindset. I get it. Believe me, I understand it, but I find it hard to get really stressed out about it because I just feel they're better than everybody. Now, it's different with this year's team because I believe last year's team and even the year before that, those guys read the headlines and they were like, yeah, that's right, we're the best. Like, nobody can beat us. Like, it's okay, good to be confident, but also like cocky for no good reason. You ain't won shit. Now they're a team that's the favorite. They don't have that mindset anymore. They don't go into these games thinking like, yeah, we're hot shit, whatever. We're going to load up. We're going to beat the crap out of these garbage teams and come up small against good teams. Like that, they don't play that way now. Like they're out to wreck people, but some of that's been missing, and I don't know where it comes from. It's still there. I don't think it's gone. It's certainly not gone, but if you got a team that's playing, that's got kind of like low, low feelings like that, and if Allen has to miss any games, it's a tough time. That's a tough time to try to figure things out because the offense has to change drastically if Allen's out, because you're not going to run all the same plays with Case Keenum. Like that's just not going to happen. You're going to want to run the ball more. Better figure out how to run the ball really fast. Like maybe Nyheim Hines comes into play there a lot more. That's where that comes from. But that's all, that's disaster prep right now. This team, I still believe that they're the best team in the AFC. I still, them in Kansas City, it's that 1A, 1B. And I think Philly is maybe the only team in the NFC that can hang with them. And it's because they play the same kind of offense Kansas City and the Bills do. So I'm not sweating it yet, but if he ends up missing a few games here and things get a little tighter, I'm hoping that if I'm a Bills fan, I'm hoping Allen comes back in and is right back on the MVP pace, and they can tear ass the rest of the way, because otherwise life gets a lot harder.
I'm back with Joe Yerdon. You said something before the break that sticks out with me, and I agree with you. I still think the Bills are the best team, and I'll say this: when you are the best team, everybody wants to beat you the most. Like the Jets, they're going to get their. You hear it all the time. You're going to get everyone's best shot when you're the hunted, and it's true. Miami, that game, that week 3 was like a Super Bowl at the time to Miami. I don't care how many guys were injured for Miami or if it was 1,000 degrees out. That was their Super Bowl. This was like a Super Bowl, or at least I should say a playoff game to the Jets. You know what I mean?
Right.
To be able to beat their divisional rivals, you're going to get their best shot. And going back to the Miami game, it's easy. And it was also fair to have a million excuses. I mean, no Mitch Morse, no Dawson Knox, no Poyer, no Hyde. That might have been the first week Hyde didn't play too.
Yep.
I mean, I can't even remember. Gabe Davis was hurt. He played hurt. So many injuries, a million injuries, and it was a million degrees out, and they still barely lost. There was, that was whatever. This game is different. Forget about the Josh Allen injury at the end. This was the first time all year. So all the stuff that was leaking for the Bills, the run defense against Green Bay, the turnovers against the Rams, all this stuff finally reared its ugly head, and it cost them against the New York Jets. And I think that's why people tend to overreact. I know I'm sure I've overreacted some on Sunday, not as much today, a little bit, but especially on Sunday night. I mean, I was stewing on Sunday night, man. But 2 takes. I think the takeaway from this game, not counting Josh Allen on the field, terrible game by his standards. Off the field, much bigger concern. Hope he's okay because he's the key. But I have 2 big takeaways based on this game. Number one, we've talked about him a little bit on this podcast. I feel like up until now, I have felt like adding Odell Beckham Jr., and has been talked about for weeks. Von Miller, of course, is making it sound like it's a foregone conclusion. I have felt that OBJ was a potential luxury guy. Like, yeah, sure, add him to the mix. This team's already explosive. Man, you give him another weapon like Odell Beckham Jr., assuming he could play and he's healthy near the end of the year. Wow, what a great luxury that is, man. Now, I'm going to be honest, for a lot of reasons we've talked about today, I am starting to think that Odell Beckham Jr. is a borderline necessity for this football team, because I don't think they get anything with any consistency from the slot, which he would play a lot of the slot. They don't get it from McKenzie. They don't trust Shakir yet, clearly. And again, we talked about Gabe Davis. Maybe Gabe Davis is not ready to be a bona fide number 2 receiver based on what we've seen with our eyes this year. You bring this guy into the mix, it felt like a luxury. Now I'm starting to think, Joe, they really, really, really could use him. Like, almost need him. Because again, if you can only trust Diggs, then you don't have enough.
Yeah, I think if you can't trust Diggs, that's a bigger problem.
I meant beyond Diggs. You trust Diggs. My bad. I said that wrong. Anyone beyond Diggs, you can't trust.
Yeah, I certainly understand not being able to be fully behind Davis. Like I can understand that he's too inconsistent.
I want to be, man. I love him. I want to be. But
he can be really good. It's just the consistency's off right now. And we went over this before. McKenzie, they seem to only be interested in using in run plays. Maybe that's the fault of play calling to not get him involved more in actual pass plays.
And 2 catches for a 12-yard Sunday, nothing.
Yeah, so it's whatever. It's fine. Way to Cole Beasley that game. Cool, good work. But I mean, to say it's a necessity, I don't know. It's still the same receiving crew that they had at the beginning of the year. Still the same. It's still the same guys. It's still the same. All that stuff. I don't necessarily buy into the necessity thing with Beckham because all the guys you have, you can do it. Davis can do it. Knox can do it. They've put in so much work with these guys to get them to a point where it's like, okay, you're our guys. I don't know if it's to replace McKenzie. I could see that. Maybe, but like, is he going to be cool with a number 3 job? Do you slot Davis back to 3? Like, I don't know.
I think Davis becomes the number 3. Maybe not right away.
Right.
But I put it this way. I think Beckham plays a lot of the slot. I think he's going to take the snaps. If Beckham were to sign with the Bills, he's going to take McKenzie snaps. So he's not going to take Gabe Davis's snaps.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're right. It's not necessary. Maybe necessity was poor wording on my part.
I mean,
it's becoming more important.
I get it from your standpoint as as a fan being like, get him some help. He's, get him some other options out there. I understand that. Believe me. Isn't that why you traded for Nyheim Hines, like the Mr. Receiver running back? Like, isn't that kind of why you did that? Like,
sure.
I mean, that's a short option choice. Like, I don't know, like have Nyheim Hines run those fullback wheel routes up the sideline instead, and you don't need Gilliam to do that stuff.
Circling back to our discussion earlier, where we both feel like too dependent on Josh Allen playing like an MVP to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
One example we gave, which is an obvious one, is the running game is just not effective enough. It's complimentary. It's not going to close out. It hasn't closed out games. It hasn't dominated games, and I don't see it doing that. Another example of saying that is this. Name me a time all year where a receiver for the Bills, which happens sometimes, how do you overcome a quarterback who's not playing his best? One way is a quarterback will throw a 5 or 10 yard slant to a receiver. He'll break a tackle and take it downfield for 50, 60 yards and a score. I haven't seen that from Buffalo whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? Stephon, again, to a certain extent, sure. I'm taking nothing away from Stephon. He's one of the very best receivers in the NFL. When is Gabe Davis or Isaiah McKenzie or Khalil Shakir or Jamison Crowder before he got hurt? When are these guys taking a short pass, making somebody miss and taking it to the house or taking it for a 50, 60 yard play? You know what I'm saying? It's either Josh is slinging it down the field, he's running for 36 yard touchdowns like he did against the Jets, or that's it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because that's how they're moving down the field, or it's dink and dunk, because nobody's making plays except for Stephon Diggs, except for Gabe Davis one game.
Yeah. Or I assume we're just going to ignore the Pittsburgh game because that was such a clown show.
Except for Pittsburgh. Yeah. Right. Except for Pittsburgh. He was Mike Evans on steroids against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
You and I could have been that too.
Yeah. And nobody's going to play like that every week, but getting back to the point of consistency, he's also catching a ball, clapping his hands. I seen a video, the way he catches the ball, which he always has. He kind of claps his hands on the ball, which is really weird.
Not how you do
Gabe Davis is dropping too many passes, and this is coming from a guy who's the president and the founder of the Gabe Davis fan club. Give me Odell Beckham Jr. Here's the other take. I think we realized on Sunday how much, and by the way, we spent this whole podcast now talking about the shitty offense beyond Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Which, by the way, offensive line, terrible. Josh was sacked 5 times, and it could have been 8 or 9 times. This was far and away their worst game of the season, too. So let's not let them escape criticism. The defense didn't play they were okay, but still, make a stop at the end. That last drive, 13 plays, 86 yards. They took up 6 minutes and 18 seconds. Jets started on their own 4-yard line. They had runs of 9, 7, 16, 17, 4, 15, and 3 yards. They reached the red zone without Zach Wilson throwing one single pass. And they ended up kicking what became a game-winning field goal.
Yeah.
Matt Milano not playing hurt this team. And I think he's the MVP of this defense. And I don't think, hold on. Von Miller. That's like saying Stephon Diggs is the MVP of the offense, not counting Josh Allen. Matt Milano is the MVP of the defense, not counting Von Miller. Let me be fair here. Matt Milano is good to make that one huge 3-yard loss behind the line of scrimmage hit, or to snuff out a screen pass and make a big play, or to get an interception, cause a fumble. He's that playmaker. He didn't play on Sunday. They clearly miss him. Sometimes you realize the value of a guy when he's actually not out there. I think Matt Milano hurt them a lot.
Yeah.
By not being out there, man.
That when Miller makes that sack that turned into the fumble late in the game, I was like, well, there he is. He's there. He does play. That's his job. He did it. Like, I thought that was the turning point.
Should have been.
That was the Bills were going to roll after that point. Obviously, didn't happen. But no, Milano hurts. Obviously, you're asking a lot of Edmonds to do more. I don't know that that's the role necessarily you want to have him playing.
You want him to, but he doesn't.
Right. I don't want to get into it. I don't want to get into an Edmonds.
Me neither.
It's very annoying, but no Rousseau, man, like no Rousseau really hurts. That hurt Miller in that game too, because you don't have to worry about somebody else coming off the other side now, or busting it, because Rousseau is really good against the run. He's so big, you can't wrangle him. He can toss guys aside. But you go without him, suddenly the pass rush is it's really only Miller. I mean, the teams have been doing a better job about, wrapping up the middle part of the line. Listen, Oliver's great. I love Oliver, but if you take one piece away from that line or the pressure, the front seven, front six, whatever they line up with, it gets a little easier to defend those guys up the middle because you're focused. You're only worried about Miller, wherever Miller is, and then Rousseau maybe sneaking in on a stunt or something like that, because you're not sweating the D tackles getting in the backfield on any of these plays. Like it's not really a worry, but this is a lot of stuff for a team to deal with. I mean, it comes off as excuses, but I mean, for crying out loud, they're missing 4 or 5 starters on defense, 5, 6, like that's crazy.
It is. By the way, we haven't talked about this because again, Josh Allen's injury is the big concern, but Greg Rousseau, high ankle sprain. He's going to be out multiple weeks. I got to hold my microphone now because it's falling apart on my stand here. Greg Rousseau, high ankle sprain, out multiple weeks. I've heard you could count on him being gone for 3 to 5 weeks. That's what I've heard. To your point about Ed Oliver, I think he's a fantastic talent, but quite frankly, I have only kind of like Gabe Davis on the offense. He's been inconsistent. He's had flashes, but he hasn't been steady. And he does not have a sack this entire season so far, which again, at some point, we heard this last year with Jerry Hughes. He's so good. He's winning these battles. Finish a play every now and then. Yeah. I know Oliver had 1 sack that was brought back because of a penalty, but Von Miller's got 7 sacks in 8 games and 2 forced fumbles, and Rousseau 5 sacks. They're absolutely going to miss him. Yeah, man. And the injuries do matter. I mean, I'm not going to say that doesn't matter. 2 quick, by the way, and I do want to talk a couple of minutes of Sabres before we get out of here. I mean, I got a hockey guy in there. Probably should talk to some Sabres. Maybe this is a trend, and a trend that if you're a Bills fan, you don't like. The Bills haven't scored a touchdown in the second half of 2 straight games now. And they've been outscored 20-6 in the second half of games over the last 2 weeks. This is a team that's been coming in and dominating third and fourth quarters all season before this, and second halves in general. So that's a trend that's a little worrisome. And also, I saw a stat: the Bills have not topped 27 points in 5 of their last 6 games. They only failed to score 27 points 6 times all of last year. So they've already done that 5 through their first 8 games. And by the way, if you are watching this on YouTube by chance, literally my mic boom arm fell off the stand, and I'm literally holding this thing up by by the microphone right now, finishing up this pod with Joe. All right, let's turn our attention for a couple minutes at least to the Buffalo Sabres. Couple things I want to ask you. First and foremost, I have not caught it because again, we're taping this on Monday. I have not listened to it yet today. By the time this drops, I certainly will. On Monday night, I go to the gym and get my walk in, so I'll have maintenance day on. Of course, Joe with Lance Lazowski. What did you guys spend most of your time talking about on this week's show?
Well, speaking of injuries to very important people in Buffalo sports, Rasmus Dahlin missed Saturday's game against Tampa because he took what Don Granato referred to it as today when I asked him about it, was a sucker punch from Jesperi Kotkaniemi in the Carolina game, as those two got into a little bit of a dust-up. I didn't call it a sucker punch on Noted Hockey, but it was really slimy. Like, it's borderline, but it was just a wild swing around the referee that caught Dahlin right square in the jaw. I mean, great punch, just kind of shitty. But he's out with an upper body injury, which, it's hockey purposes. It's either upper or it's lower, or it's a general body injury. It's upper. I'm going on the hunch that it's probably a concussion. I don't know what else, unless he's got like hairline jaw fracture or something like that, but that would be, I think they would have let us know if that was the case, but I'm taking it to believe it's a concussion. So that's a worry. What softens that blow is that Owen Power was goddamn ridiculous. He was so good against Tampa. And I know they lose the game. They lost both games 5-3 over the weekend. I mean, but these are two teams that are distinct favorites to win the Stanley Cup. Tampa and Carolina are some of the best in the league. So to go on the road, and they had leads in both games, which is wild. You know, they had leads. I believe they were third period. Well, I don't know about the Carolina game, but they had a third period lead against Tampa. You know, end up losing. So, you know, it's, you know, kind of sucks that way. But you know, if you're gonna be without Dahlin, having power there to kind of soften that blow really helps, because Jesus, he's good. It's I my prediction was kind of wrong on maintenance day, because I said we're going to be throwing flowers at the feet of Owen Power next week. Well, next week happened this week, and we didn't really get into it, but we could have. But we were too focused on Dahlin being hurt and what that could do to things, because the defense has been decimated all year. You know, the forwards haven't had any injury issues, knock on wood. It's just defense. You know, they at any time 3 starters are out of the lineup, and that's sucks, especially when you're dealing with Carolina and Tampa on the road. Those are the games you want to have the full loaded lineup. But Granato left to open the possibility. And by the time you listen to this, maybe we'll know better. Maybe you'll know better. Follow me on Twitter, find out. Follow Lance on Twitter, find out. But he left to open the possibility that Dahlin could play Tuesday night's game. I would suspect he won't, because that would be.
But that's still good news, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, he was on the bench. He sat on the bench today. No, you know, it wasn't in gear. He wasn't skating. Wasn't any of that stuff. But he sat on the bench today during practice, on Monday during practice. So if it's a concussion, it's not all that serious. If it's just kind of like, you know, maybe he's just got a, you know, migraine or something, I don't know. Whatever the issue is, it's probably not bothering him too much, but they're erring on the side of caution, which is probably the best thing to do with your best player. If there's any sort of issue, it's a very long season. They're only about 13, 14 games into it. Like, you don't need to be pushing them to get into the games, especially when it's the friggin' Coyotes coming up. Thursday night, though, I would bet anything Dahlin wants in on that one.
Oh, absolutely.
Because our old pal Jack Eichel's back in town again, and oh my goodness. Listen, I have zero problems with Jack ever. I've never had an issue with Jack. I mean, you know, whatever. Everybody's got personality quirks. It's fine. But I've never had an issue with him. I thought he kind of got done a little bit raw by what happened last year. He didn't help himself, obviously. He's pissed about losing a game, and he tries to be his, sarcastic self, and it comes off as like sore loser shit. And it's like,
sure,
all right, well, now you're toast. You're never going to get the benefit of the doubt ever in Buffalo from any fan ever again. Like, that's just not happening. But
right.
The Eichel you saw in that game last year is not the guy that is playing this year. He looks like the Eichel we saw in Buffalo in 2019, 2020, the guy who got MVP votes, the guy who had an unbelievable season, the guy who everybody wanted to see succeed here. That's the guy that's playing for Vegas right now. And Vegas looks dynamite. They look really friggin' good. And Eichel is the guy driving the bus.
Yeah.
It could be a lot of fun Thursday. I know Dahlin wants that game bad. Like, if he has to sit out that game, I don't want to be the first team that has to play against him, because he's going to be so pissed off about, I mean, he's been playing kind of like an asshole all season, but like, if you got to deal with Dahlin after, having to miss maybe 1 or 2 games, who knows, like, whatever, maybe he won't miss any, who knows? But if he has to miss that game though, like, that's the next game that he plays in after that, man, he's going to be just a total asshole to everybody. And if it's the Bruins, because they play the Bruins Saturday, the other team that's red hot to start the year.
Yeah.
Brad Marchand came back from hip surgery a month early, so he and Dahlin get to renew their trolling war of words, and kind of trying to out rat the other one.
If you're even just a casual fan of the Sabres, and you like to watch them sometimes, or you like to go to the game 1, 2, 3 times per year, this feels like a really good week to reintroduce yourself to the arena, because Thursday is going to be, and we saw it last year, is going to be electric, because now Vegas, like you said, to your point, is really good. Eichel, as we're taping this, he's got 14 points in 13 games. To your point, he's clearly driving the bus in Vegas. They're very good. Hopefully Dahlin will be back. Of course, Tuck is going to want something to prove, and Krebs, they're going against their old team. Is going to be electric for sure. You mentioned Noted Hockey, of course, for everyone watching or listening. That's Joe's Substack. Make sure you subscribe to that. You wrote, again, covering the weekend, the Sabres did lose a pair of 5-3 games at Carolina. I think that was Thursday, and then Saturday was
Friday,
in
Saturday.
Tampa. Yeah, yeah, my bad. And you wrote about when a measuring stick reads wrong. Kind of give fans who might not have subscribed yet, or they don't know what I'm talking about. But that was a nice post game, man. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So going into that weekend, I always, when you're playing teams that are established as some of the elite in the league, which Carolina and Tampa are, you kind of look at them as a way to kind of measure where your team is at. And it is a measuring stick kind of game. Maybe, if you're an NBA fan, maybe you think of it as a heat check because, Sabres are playing well, things are going good. And you got to be like, all right, let's see how good they are right now. Let's see where it goes. They hung in both of those games. And and like I mentioned, they're missing half their starting defense. No Samuelson, no Jokiharju. They had no Lyubushkin on Friday, no Dahlin on Saturday. Lyubushkin came back, although he's probably about playing at 70-75%. So he's gutting it out. He's just kind of that dude. He's that guy that's going to do it. But you get a taste of what this could be for this team. Like, you can call it a measuring stick game and say like, all right, but it's not really, because you're not getting the whole picture from them. And if this is them at missing 3 starting defensemen and going down there and playing what are essentially 2 1-goal games, in games they had leads in both, of them. They had 2 1-goal leads against Tampa and against Carolina. And then they had a 3-2 lead in the third against Carolina, which they ended up losing, or against Tampa ended up losing. I got my games all backwards here, but you want to come away and say like, all right, well, they hung in there good. It's like, well, yeah, but that's not the point of how they're playing. Like, to me, it's not a measuring stick situation, just because of what you're missing and how this, the team's still kind of gelling. They're still kind of getting their stuff together. They ran lines at practice today that are completely different.
Yeah, I saw that.
Different from anything that they've run out at all this year. They're trying to, like, Lance and I talked about it on the pod. They're trying to get some things figured out with a couple of guys, and one of them's Middlestat. But you're trying to find ways to make it work. Like, they're going to be tinkering around and doing stuff like this all season. But man, oh man, I want to see that. I want to see them. They don't play Carolina again until February. I want them, and that game will be in Buffalo. So keep your eyes out for some fireworks in that one, possibly. But I want to see the Sabres with a loaded lineup. I mean, it's a home game, so it's a little easier in the matchups. But I want to see what they look like against Carolina in that spot, because Carolina's had their way with Buffalo pretty well the last couple of years,
sure,
because they can blitz everybody. Same thing for Tampa. I mean, Tampa owns them, whether it's Buffalo or in Tampa. They just have their number all the time. But that game against them on Saturday was one that even a year ago, I think they would lose that game going away pretty bad. Like, that's a 5-2 loss waiting to happen, or 6-2 loss waiting to happen, because that's the kind of game that always happens against Tampa down there. Like, some freak stuff happens, and then Kucherov goes crazy and scores, and Point gets a hat trick or some shit.
Right.
That's the way it goes. Those things didn't happen though, so it's very encouraging, but it's something to build on, and something for this group, which again is obscenely young, to build on, because I mean, for as many guys that were here the last couple of years, not a lot of them were. So like, they don't have any of that history with any of these teams. So it's good to see. It's just, I wouldn't take it as, gospel, that like, this is where this team's going to be. It's like, oh, they'll never beat them. No, they're going to take some points out of these guys at some point during this year. And it's going to look really good.
Let me, this feels kind of weird to ask you this, but all right. So as of right now, as we tape this again, late around dinner time on Monday, the Buffalo Sabres are 7-5 through 12 games. That's a pretty good record for this team right now. 7-5, 14 points. Good for 5th in the Atlantic. As we tape this, as an example of how good the Eastern Conference is and just the NHL, the way it works, the Sabres have been pretty much, even though with 2 losses over the weekend against good teams, the Sabres, for the most part, have been a kind of a feel-good story so far early this season. Well, guess what, folks? If the playoffs started today, the Buffalo Sabres would not be in the playoffs. That's how good this Eastern Conference really is. So now the Sabres return home we're dropping this Tuesday, so starting tonight. They play Arizona, and then they have Vegas on Thursday and Boston on Saturday, arguably the two best teams right now in the NHL. And then you get Vancouver early next week to wrap up, I believe, a 4-game homestand.
Yes.
Isn't it? It's like almost like these Arizona Vancouver games. Like, if you're looking from a competitive, I want to stay in the playoff mix here, you almost need to find a way to make sure you beat Arizona and Vancouver, right? I mean, you don't want to be going 1-3 or 0-4 on this homestand, because you're going to fall off pretty quick from this race, right?
Yeah, you don't want to heap pressure on teams for games in the beginning of November. Like, that's just, it's mean to do, and it's kind of shitty to try to do that. But in the grand scheme of things, yes, these are games that they should win. I mean, Coyotes, Jesus, where are they on their schedule here? They are just at the beginning of a 14-game road trip. Like,
that's crazy.
This will be game 2 of a 14 straight on the road. They don't go back home until the beginning of December because of the whole new arena thing. They got stuff to fix. I don't know if you saw, but like the visiting locker room was basically out, in some empty part of the concourse there that they had, curtained off. Like, it's just, whatever, it's fine. But they had to go away for a month and a half just to make sure they could get everything in place and make sure everything was good to go. Like, it's crazy to do that, but hey, whatever. Catch them now so that you can, that you can take care of business, beat them early. They're coming off a high. They beat the Capitals on Saturday. It's still Ovi playing over there. It's, it's still Darcy Kemper in goal, who won the Stanley Cup last year. It's a pretty good Caps team. But Vancouver's been in the dumps all season. Like, they had the horrible start. They finally started to win some games, but they're still not very good. And that game will be that'll be the 5th game of a 5-game road trip for them. So they're already looking forward to going back home by the time they get into Buffalo. So beat the pants off of them, make sure that they go home sad, and, treat them the way Seattle treated Buffalo at the last game of their road trip. Do the same thing to them that Seattle did to the Sabres. Beat those two. You have to beat those two teams. Like, they're both still single digits, whatever. Fine. It's stupid. It's early in the season, but like, Vancouver's 3-6-3. That's not good. What the hell's Arizona's record right now? Blah, 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 blah. They've only got 9 points. They're 4-6-1, which is kind of shocking, honestly, because they don't have a ton of talent there. So take care of business in those games. Vegas and Boston games are, again, not measuring stick games, but you're catching two teams that are absolutely beast mode right now. Like, and one of them, I mean, Boston's a rival. Vegas is a brand new rival now just because of Jack stuff. So that's going to be two hyper tense emotion games there. And I'm not saying emotional like sad. I'm saying emotional like one sketchy hit might get things bubbling up. So
sure.
It's those kinds of games. So yeah, but yeah, take care of the Coyotes on Tuesday. Take care of Vancouver on, what was it? It's Sunday, Monday.
I think it's next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So realistically, you're a Sabres fan. You want a good homestand. Beat the two teams that you're supposed to beat and try to steal a point if you can, again, between Vegas and Boston. If you can get 5 out of 8 points in this homestand, I think it's pretty good. One last thing, I'm going to let you go here. So on Monday, the Sabres social media finally dropped photographs and a promo video of, I don't want to say new uniforms, the throwback uniforms, man. And I'm going to tell you, I've said this before. I'm not a uniform guy. Like, I usually don't give a shit what the Bills are wearing, what colors, any of that stuff. I personally, I think they look good on other people, but me personally, I don't like jerseys. I don't like the way they look on me. I think they look fantastic on a lot of other people, but I don't buy jerseys for that reason. But anyway, that might change, because these photos that they put out today, and again, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you are subscribed if you do. But anyway, I got a picture of Darlene and a picture of Tuck up there. I gotta be honest with you, man. These uniforms are fucking sweet. They look good. I don't know, maybe you don't agree with me, but holy shit, man. I really like this look. It's a fresh look. And by the way, they're going to debut these. I think they're wearing them for 12 of their home games. So you're going to be seeing a lot of these starting later this month. They're debuting it on November 23rd when they play at home against the St. Louis Blues. You're going to be seeing plenty of these uniforms. Now that you see them on current players, what are your thoughts?
It's I said this on Twitter, but I'm a blue and gold guy. Like the 80s uniforms and what they're wearing now, like that's my jam. They're some of the best uniforms in the NHL as far as I'm concerned. And that's not like Homer talk. It's none of that. They legit are.
Mm-hmm.
These are the ones I've got a connection to because of college. Being a college boy. Here we go. Comes the sirens now. It's a hot take. Get out of here, please. Not even a hot take. But like when I was in college in Oswego, anytime we came out to Buffalo to come see a game, they were in these uniforms. It was Hasek. It was Pekka. It was all those guys playing, and like the games were intense. Every game we went to was somehow some crazy kind of game, and it was fun as hell to go to. Tickets were pretty cheap. I mean, we got tickets. We're talking 300 level behind one of the goals for like $26. Pretty good. I mean, especially for college pricing. I mean, it wasn't college price, but like if you're in college, $26 for a game is pretty good. But the guys, the players are so geeked up to wear these. They cannot wait. Jacob Bryson he goes, he's like, dude, when's our first game with these? And I was like, the 23rd. He's like, oh, sweet. And I was like, are you even old enough for these? And he's like, yeah, man, I remember these when I was a kid. And I was like, what? So I had to look up his birthday. He was born in 97. So that made me feel really old because that's when I graduated. But also I think about it like when he's 5 or 6 and that team they're still wearing them in 02, 03. Like, they still wore them in 05, 06 too. So like that's prime age for a kid growing up then to see these and be like, wow, these are awesome. I love these. Like that's the perfect age for that. But like, guys like Cousins and them, they never had it. Tuck is over the moon. He cannot wait to play in these because we got him talking about jerseys he owned back in the day. And I think he said he had one of the red butter knives ones in like Tim Connolly, or maybe it was one of the black ones. Either way, but like these are the jerseys these guys, some of these guys grew up with. Like that's the thing. Like that's really cool. And the fans, listen, the fans have been asking for this stuff for like a few years. All these other teams are doing throwbacks. All these other teams are doing it. It's kind of like, dude, get off your ass. Like, just make these again. Let's try it again. And they look friggin' great. I was never a huge fan of these, but like these look great. I mean, it's the same thing as it used to be basically, but they look awesome. I love it. It's going to be really cool to see it in person.
I'll tell you, man, I think I like them now more than I did when they were actually wearing them. It's going to be a very tense week in Buffalo because, again, you got the Josh Allen news, which is bigger than the game against the Vikings on Sunday. That's hopefully that's relatively good news. And then you got Darlene to worry about. But again, Jack Eichel coming to town. This is going to be a very intense week for Buffalo sports. Make sure you're following Joe on Twitter at Joe Yerdon. Maintenance Day podcast every Monday with Lance Lazowski of the Buffalo News. And make sure you subscribe to Noted Hockey, his Substack. It really, truly, and I'm not just saying this because you're my boy and because you're on the podcast. It is must read, man. It really is. I love, especially, I mean, I like reading it for various reasons, but I especially love reading your post-game stuff because I don't always watch the games. I watch all the Sabres After Dark games, but I haven't watched all the games this year. I feel like I do when I go on your stuff. So make sure you subscribe to Noted Hockey. Again, a very intense week. Buffalo sports. Joe Yerdon, thanks a lot, buddy. Always a pleasure having you on the show, man.
Dude, always fun. Hopefully next week brings about some more fun news for everybody.